Yo, how are you doing, folks? Welcome to episode 23 of the Simpa Life Podcast. I am Simpa Carter, and as always, I am joined by Maka. How are you on this fine evening, sir?
Not too bad. You didn't fuck it up this time. I'm just joking. It's normally me that fucks it up. So I'm actually doing really well. Yeah, just enjoying the fact that it's warmer and it's brighter. Back
Indeed,
you, guy.
It is now officially spring. The clocks will be changing, I think, next weekend or maybe after this recording goes out. I'm not quite sure on timescale right now. We are joined today by a hell of a guest. He was actually the opening speaker for the Durham City Cannabis Club Autumn Expo at Bowburn Hotel back in October 2019. George Charlton, he is a qualified award-winning trainer, counselor and consultant offering addiction support, family therapy, mediation, drug and alcohol awareness and harm prevention training. Without further ado, I'll throw you over to George to introduce himself a little bit better.
Hi, Simba. Hi, guys. Do you know what it is? I think my website bio probably makes me sound a lot better than I actually am. But like a real honour to be here with you lads as well today on your podcast. I'm a big fan, and I'm pleased to spend an hour with you to see where we get to.
Right, exactly. I've got quite a few sort of questions for you. I'm aware that we're only going to be recording sort of for an hour with yourself because of prior commitments and technological issues that we have had for the past half an hour while trying to prepare for this.
Just absolutely fucking panicking, just going, it doesn't fucking work. But yeah, okay, let's get cracking.
Yeah, we're on there. So I suppose the first question is sort of to lead you into telling, I suppose, your story and your narrative and what it is and why you sort of do what you do. So it's how and why did you get involved in drug reform?
Wow. Well, I think the thing I should say right up at the top is you two gentlemen absolutely need to cut me short, right? Because like I've got more patter than a fortnight's rain, right? And when I start talking, I never fucking shut up. You know what I mean? So like, how did I get into this? Well, my T-shirt says drug war veteran. And I guess that's what I am in some ways. I'm a veteran survivor of the drug war. I work for myself currently. I have done for probably the last 10 years. But drugs. I'm an old bloke, you know, in many ways. I think compared to you lads, right? I grew up in South Tyneside, and I was born in 1973. I went to a good old Catholic school where they administered discipline by fucking braining you as hard as they could across your hands with leather straps, you know. I really struggled, you know, academically. I wasn't very good at school. I had big daft fucking national health glasses on, a bit like what I'm wearing now, except they're fashionable. I had a stupid fucking haircut, man, and my dad was always spitting in his hand and rubbing it across my hair and all that, right? And there was lots of love in my family and stuff like that, but I felt like an oddball, man, right? I always used to look at other people and think, other kids and think, I don't feel the way that they looked, right? They looked to be kind of the way they would interact and get on with each other. It just looked really natural for them. And I think for me, I didn't get that. I didn't feel popular. I wasn't popular. You almost had these different classes in my school. You had like the SWATs and the academics, and I didn't fit into that class. Then you had the trendies and the dressers with their pod sandals on and all that, and I didn't fit into that group. Then you had kind of people who maybe struggled with sports and kind of were a little bit overweight and that. And even they were saying, "You can fuck off, George. We don't even want you in our group." So I was kind of creating a social class all of my own, and I was the only fucking member. Do you know what I mean? But you know what? Joking aside, man, right? Like, school was really tough growing up, and I kind of identify now that like I struggled with kind of low self-esteem and low self-worth, right? And I was quite a sensitive kid, you know, and going to a school where they used to bray you like that, right? For some boys, it was like a badge of honor getting hit, right? But when I used to get hit by grown men who really went for it, you know, as well, they were trying to fucking hurt you. They did hurt my hands, but they hurt my mind more. Do you know what I mean? And I think that long before I ever got involved in drugs, I was fucking broken. Do you know what I mean? I was emotionally, physically, and sexually bankrupt and abused by the time I was 15. I think my introduction to cannabis was again like early on, probably 14 or 15-year-old, going to a bloke's house called Bob, his surname shall remain nameless, who lived in Hebburn. And it was fucking great, man, going down to Bob's house. And he was much older than me, and that he kind of had dreads in his hair, Afghan black and all that was being sold. And I remember having a joint and kind of just fucking having the biggest whitey of my life and all that, and kind of not really having a great deal of pleasure out of it. But kind of recognizing that, I guess that even though I had a whitey, that cannabis did something for me. Do you know what I mean? It kind of absolutely sedated my racing brain, you know, and it was no coincidence that, like, around that time in the late 80s, we were all chipping in to get a tenner deal, and we're down Westmoreland Court Flats having a couple of joints and that. And cannabis became like just a really big part of my life, you know, from the age of about 14 or 15 right the way through until until I was about 28 or 29. Yeah, I think as well, I was always desperate to change the way that I was feeling as well, though. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of, maybe at an unconscious level, I think I started to realize that kind of drugs could do for me what I couldn't do for myself. So kind of going to score more dope, and then kind of somebody says, well, do you want some acid? And I took some acid, and it was a fucking nightmare. Everyone seemed to love it. I ended up hiding down the bushes in the town for 10 hours, maybe thinking, it's fucking stop. I'll never do it again. But then I always did it again. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of like, it was always that thing. And then I remember going along one night to get some trips, and the kid says, I've got no trips, but I've got some whiz. And it was like, well, what's that? You know what I mean? It was kind of, and I remember kind of getting a tenner bag of speed, and I took that. And I fucking arrived. I'm telling you, I'm still picking me up.
Yeah, we just got you there.
You got, sorry, just for a little bit there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So like the amphetamine, right? When I took that, right, I fucking arrived. I'm telling you, right? It was like my shoulders went back. Like my dancing got better. I could talk to the girls. Do you know what I mean? Like people weren't laughing at us anymore because we were taking the piss out of us. So we're kind of finding this funny. Do you know what I mean? I was a bit of a fucking joker, a bit of a funny fucker. And all of the time that this is going on, I'm getting like positive regard. Do you know what I mean? Like unconditional positive regard from people, which was really different to how my younger years had been. But what was happening was, like, when everyone would take a bit of whiz, I'd take a bit of MDMA on a weekend, and come Monday they'd go to work, I'd be taking more fucking amphetamines. Do you know what I mean? And smoking more dope, and taking. I became kind of really irresponsible around my use in some ways. I was doing a YDS, £19.50 a week. That was your wage. Do you know what I mean? And you couldn't get much fucking dope off Bob. And you couldn't get much fucking whiz off the other fella for £19.50. So I started getting involved in crime and that, and stealing from the places where I was working. And it was one of them, man. I always remember kind of my first involvement with the police was I'd been in somebody's van, and I'd been doing whatever drugs we'd been doing. And I'd lost my wallet. I wasn't aware that I'd lost my wallet. The only time that I become aware that I lost my wallet was when a policeman knocked on my dad's door, right? Said, we found your son's wallet inside of a minibus, which has got no tax and test on it. Can we talk to him? And my dad said, well, why do you need to talk? He said, well, we found some drugs. And went inside a little flappy bit of my wallet. There's a couple of joints worth in there, man. I'm telling you, it was like fucking nout, right? And I was taken away in the car. They took us down to Keppel Street Police Station and interviewed us and all that, right? And I was still a relatively young guy, you know, and I was like it was on top, man. It was really fucking difficult to kind of try and talk my way out of that. I got cautioned for it, and I think I learned a very quick lesson there, which is like when you've got drugs, you need to kind of get them hidden or get them used really, really quickly, because you can't risk getting caught by the police. I mean, the long story short for me, lads, you know, was the amphetamine ended up becoming a real problem for me. I was a daily user. I was using whiz in copious amounts, not sleeping, suffering with psychosis, and I ended up thinking I need to join the army fucking to address my drug problem. And I thought a really good thing to do to get away from drugs would be to take a load of fucking drugs with us. So I took a 9 bar of hash down to Deep Cut, Camberley, Surrey, and I'd been in basic training for 2 weeks, and I met this nugget from Middlesbrough. I always meet a nugget me, or I don't know, they might think the same thing about me, but I met this kid down there, and I hadn't had anything in for two weeks, but I had this 9 bar and hidden, and we got talking about, we used to go to the raves and go to the Eclipse and all that. And it was like, start whispering. I said, he said, I used to smoke a bit of dope. I said, oh, really? Yeah, I used to smoke a bit of dope as well. And then before you know it, we were both skinning up, forgetting that I'm in the fucking British Army. Do you know what I mean? Right. And I picked my bit of dope up. He didn't pick his bit of dope up. We're walking around the trees, getting stoned in the army, man. You know, thinking we're clever fuckers and that. And when we come back, somebody had found the dope, his little bit of dope on the floor. It had been handed into the sergeants. The military police had been informed, and before he knew where I was, they'd found like a couple of bites out of a 9-bar in my room, and ended up locked up, locked up and put in front of the commanding officer. And I got 2.5 years in prison, and then fucking
really
kicked out.
Wow, I didn't know that.
2.5 years, and then kind of came home, and you know what, man? The last 10 years from me, when I got home from the military, probably the age of 21-year-old, it just amplified, you know, kind of, I didn't know what I was supposed to be in my life. I think the one thing that I thought I was supposed to be was a soldier. I'd been in the Army Cadets. I used to play the bugle. I remember on Sundays and that. And I'd fucking blown it. And I came back home to heaven, feeling a disgrace, and the only way that I knew to do was to medicate that with different kinds of drugs. And it went from I'm not really a fan of the words recreational drug use, do you know what I mean? It was like more therapeutic for me, but it just went to the point where I was using for oblivion, where the dancing and the going out wasn't happening anymore, and it was about isolation and dihydrocodeine and fucking 6 to 9 litres of white cider and fitting and fucking cutting myself fucking open with razor blades because I fucking loathe myself. And your behaviour, when you start going on like that, then you're back in the police car again, and you're in locked psychiatric units in the fucking bead wing, and you know, people are stabbing you in the face and putting you in the boot of a car because you owe 10 grand's worth of fucking debt. In my life just was like, was fucked, man. Do you know what I mean? I was absolutely fucked, you know. And that wasn't like, for me, it's kind of like part of us just felt there that I needed to kind of defend that it wasn't the drugs, you know. It was kind of like other people were using the drugs that I was using, but it wasn't happening to them. But I think for me that they had some principles and discipline around the way that they were using, you know, and there certainly wasn't a harm reduction message, which was around like in the late 80s and 90s and stuff. And I don't know, I tried, I'm going to shut my hole in a second, but I tried to kill myself basically on a number of occasions, right? And this one time, like, my mum and dad were absolutely aware of what was going on at this point. I'd ended up moving back in with them. They were living with a fucking maniac, if I'm honest. They were living with a guy that was out of his mind. And my dad always tried. He said, I'm going to help you, George. I'm always going to be here for you. And he planned to take my mum away. They were both elderly. He was going to take my mum down to Uncle Jimmy's in Chesterfield, and he was going to come back home and he was going to fix my drug problem. And that was going to happen in a couple of weeks. He was going to take, and I started collecting dihydrocodeine and collecting warfarin. And my plan was going to be that when he took her down there, I was going to take all these dihydrocodeine. I was going to take a shitload of warfarin, not because you get a buzz off them, because of thin your blood. And I was going to fucking hack into my wrists, and that would be that. And he took my mum away, and I did that. And when my dad was driving down, he said to me, Mum, I've got a bad feeling, you know, Rita, something doesn't feel fucking right. And he turned the car around and came home and found me bleeding out in the wet room, you know. And to think that they fucking had to come back and say that was really bad, man. And I ended up straight from there detained under the Mental Health Act, 30-day stay, and then straight into a residential rehabilitation centre in the year 2000, Simpa. And I was there for a year. I wasn't drinking, wasn't using, but I was still fucking broke, you know, and that kind of became the start of my journey in many ways. Tough apprenticeship, really, but I've certainly served my time.
Fucking hell. A tough apprenticeship is probably the most under-fucking-whelming description of that. My God.
Wow.
Wow.
I need to breathe. I've got to go.
Just to preface, just to give you a bit of space there to just fucking digest this, right? I've heard George speak at the autumn event. I sort of had an idea of what I was, you know, what was expected when in this episode. and you've blown my mind again. Like, fucking hell, wow. Like, I don't know what to say. It's actually mind bending. Wow.
Oh, but it's like, it's one of them, isn't it? Like the tragic thing is like, fucking, that story is not unique to me. Well, that story is unique to me because it's my story, but it's certainly not unique to the people that I work with. Like, I can honestly say, like, I'm sat here right now with fucking goosebumps, man, right? And like, and that for me is about like second chances in some ways, you know what I mean? Or I had second chances, third chances, 100 chances, you know what I mean? But I kind of sit here today filled with gratitude for that experience. Do you know what I mean? Because like, without that, then I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in now. I didn't get qualifications from school. I couldn't wait to fucking be away from there. And in many ways, in 2001, I needed to fucking rebuild my life. The rehab basically said, well, you've got another 12 weeks and you're fucking out of here, innit? And it was like, fuck. Like, what was I going to do? Go back to heaven where I lived, where kind of there was just nothing there for me, man. And nothing there but like fear, but equally anxiety, Like I owed people a lot of money and shit, and it was about kind of, one guy says to me, he says, you'll be all right, man, George. He says, you only have to do one thing. And I think, well, I can fucking do one thing. He says, well, you only have to change one thing as well. I thought, well, fucking anybody can do it. I said, what's that? He says, you need to change fucking everything. I was like, fucking hell. And you know what, man? And it was mad. And I went and did a couple of bits of education, did a basic counselling course. I'd never passed anything in my life, you know what I mean? And I remember this woman, counselling course, 12 weeks long. I think everyone passes it. And I didn't even want to be a counsellor. I didn't know how to be around people and interact and feel confident and safe without like drugs. And even when I was taking them, I wasn't feeling confident and safe in the end. Yeah. And she gave us this certificate and it said, this is to certify that George is completed a basic counselling course. And I was fucking covered, man, in goosebumps. I thought, fucking hell. Like, two things happened. First thing in my life I'd ever started and finished, right? But secondly, them goosebumps, I thought, that was a bit like snorting fucking cocaine. That feeling there, it kind of identified like being high on life. So I thought, right, fuck it, level 2, then I did level 3, level 4, postgraduate diploma, degree, and then a fucking master's in the end. I thought, you know what, I'm as hooked on education as I was on the fucking gear, so I need to kind of cut that shit out as well.
Although, do you? I don't know if you do. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, I mean...
Oh, I think... Go on.
I appreciate you jumping in there, Maka, because I for a moment I had that same feeling that we met obviously at the Newcastle Labour Drug Policy Reform Group meeting. You were speaking on the panel with a few of the guests, Fiona Gilbertson, who we've had on the podcast previously, Michael Fisher from Teesside Cannabis Club, and a few others. And immediately afterwards, I approached you and obviously expressed that in to a certain lesser degree, you spoke of the narrative of my life. We share a great deal of commonality of our youth. And I think that's one of the things that's always drawn me to your work, and since discovering sort of who you are. I think your message is powerful, truly powerful. And I think your attitude is truly refreshing in amongst the drug reform movement, because you are a person with lived experience that is, you're humbled, but you haven't let it destroy your humor. You haven't let it destroy your humanity. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And I think that is something that I hope that people take from hearing your story. And I hope that they themselves can recognize parts of it and feel a comfort akin to what you found in that we're not alone in this. You know what I mean? That we all suffer, we all have mental health, and we're all on a spectrum of ever-changing and fluctuating bullshit. And the way we deal with it is individual, but it's also part of like the collective psyche. We all have an innate desire to I suppose have a curiosity to explore our consciousness, but as you say, this desire to pacify pain. And I think that's one of the things when you were speaking of your trouble with amphetamine that was resonating in my brain, was I got to the same situation. I mean, at one point I got it down to being able to get an ounce of base for about 10-15 quid and to be able to sell a gram for a tenner. So the margins were not just stupid, but I still never had enough, because I was the same. I'd sleep every 4 or 5 days when the body literally, like, I can't go to the toilet, I can't function, I can't quite think. You're having micro naps and you're blacking out while walking down the street and shit. And then you kind of go, okay, and you get away from it. At that point, you force a bit of nutrition and you go through the whole fucking cycle again. And what you said again with your parents living with this sort of a beast or monster, to paraphrase, I can't remember the exact word you said, that resonated heavily with me, because again, I felt the same, that I've learned in later years through going through therapy and addressing a lot of my trauma and recognizing that my actions were not done entirely out of spite or out of conscious decision. There were consequences of the mental changes that you go through for such a protracted period when you take drugs for such a long time, and you get this bitterness to the world who are telling you that this is wrong and that's bad, and you're like, no, but when I do this, I feel great. All of your shit disappears. The hate of the world, the pain. I feel love in my heart. I feel connected to the universe, or whatever it may be that others feel in that situation. And I think the way you spoke at the expo, for example, and I think one of the things you said was, you know what, drugs are fucking good. And I think it was such a refreshing thing to hear from someone that's not kind of gone the exact opposite. So I suppose one of the questions I did want to ask you on this podcast was, what are your thoughts on, and how do you sort of feel about forced sobriety recovery programs?
Good question.
I suppose for me, I'm for me, it is at the end of the day, right? But like, I don't know, man. I am for whatever works, right? So I deliver an evidence-based training program, which is called CRAFT, Community Reinforcement and Family Training, right? And it comes from the premise that possibly one of the best resources that people who use drugs in a way which impacts on them badly, right, is that we empower their family members to offer help and support, right? And family members generally spend more time with drug users than with anybody else. Drug treatment providers, I've got mates who've got like 90 or 100 people on their caseload. They're meant to see them every 2 or 3 weeks, which means the quality time that you can give somebody who has an addiction issue is kind of like 20 minutes or 30 minutes if you're lucky, right? So then the drug user will then go away from seeing the clinical worker and go home to a mum or a dad or a husband or a wife who's with the substance user for hours every day, really wants to help them, but doesn't know how to help them. So what CRAFT believes is that, well, let's make the fucking family member the practitioner. Let's teach the family member behavioral change model that's focused around your love has power. I fucking love it, man. Right, that line tomorrow, I'll be shouting about that tomorrow on the call with 20 practitioners tomorrow. And the idea that your love has power, I fucking love it, right? But what happens is that we've created recovery-orientated models of care, right, where the definition of success is working towards abstinence, leaving treatment, and then not returning for 12 weeks, right? So an abstinence-based model it's okay, man, if that's what the person desires, right? But what we're saying now is that with the best efforts of this country and this fucking government, again, we've got 4,393 deaths, right? Them figures that came out a couple of months back. 15 people will die today of a drug-related death. 15 people died yesterday of a drug-related death. 15 people will die tomorrow of a drug-related death, right? And there's many, many reasons why that's going to happen. But one of the reasons is that we can kind of really alienate people's pathways and routes into treatment because we're abstinent focused in our approach, right? Rather than kind of having a more harm reductionist viewpoint, which says that, you know what, man, for many of us, the safest way to take drugs is not to take them. However, we know you're going to. So let's communicate and tell you how to do that safely. And I think that we've lost something in terms of drug and alcohol treatment and support, where, and this isn't having to go at treatment providers or the staff that work within them. You know, they do fucking absolutely fabulous work. But I think we've lost our voice around harm reduction in some ways, and the ability where by saying that, are we actually absolutely like kind of condoning drug use? So I feel for me, you know, Simpa, whatever works, man. If it's abstinence that a person wants, that's fine. If it's moderation management, that's fine. If it's heroin assisted treatment, that's absolutely fine. Do you know what I mean? But let's absolutely work with what people want.
Yeah, I think ultimately that's the thing, isn't it? We have to meet God, I can't speak today. I don't know what the hell is wrong with my mouth. I apologize to all our listeners and viewers.
You're all right, man. You're all good, man.
The service users, we need to create services that the service users will use, because exactly what you've said, that alienation, that the barriers to entry based on the fact that, oh my God, the fear of I have to, this is my last batch, my last use, my last go, my last hit. And that narrative, you keep going, you perpetuate, and you go, just one more day. And in that day, you lose an extra bit of hygiene management. You lose another relationship or connection. You lose another rented property. You lose more of your confidence, your self-worth, and your desire, because you're just chasing this idea, this narrative that is in some ways created and perpetuated by that recovery system. And again, I echo your thoughts, because the vast majority of people that work within that industry and sector are knowledgeable, caring, sympathetic individuals that just want to see good done in the world. I think some are unfortunately misguided, over moralizing, but I think the vast majority, as I've said, are trying to actually make the lives of consumers and their families better and lessen the harm on society. But the other side of the conversation, I suppose, is still that the meta-analysis, I guess, basically we term it down to 90% of all drug users do so sort of non-problematically. So then, is this a conversation that is happening in the recovery movement? Is there a thing, or is it just all use equals abuse, therefore we have to stop all use?
Yeah. But I think it's different horses for different courses, isn't it? You know, so like for me, when I went into rehab, I went into a 12-step abstinence-based program. Do you know what I mean? And you won't hear me vilify or demonize the 12 steps. You know, I owe my life to that rehab, man. You know, that I was abstinent from all drugs, including alcohol, for 7 years. I went into mutual aid groups and support where people absolutely welcomed me with open arms, when for the last decade everyone had been saying, fucking move away, you know, get away from us. So there was that connection and fellowship which came from kind of that model of 12-step recovery or mutual aid. Like that's what I needed in my life at that time, you know. Like, and I've got lots of friends who subscribe to the 12 steps, and you know, it's a case of each to their own. I think for me though, like, it was about, like, I was promised the bridge to normal living, you know, and kind of what was happening for me was it didn't feel that normal for me to be attending 4 and 5 meetings a week where I wasn't drinking or using alcohol, but I was spending a lot of time talking about alcohol and drugs. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And when my education, doing my masters at Durham, kind of got me thinking that, like, was alcohol and drugs really the issue for me? Well, yes, they were the way that I was consuming them, but when I had the opportunity of having personal therapy as well, I started to realize, you know, like, those experiences that I had as a young man growing up, like being hit and suffering with, like, going through sexual abuse when I was a kid and stuff like that, you know, it's no coincidence that I ended up doing. That I ended up needing to escape to address my trauma, you know. And I think that, like, I think whether it's about whether you abstain from problematic drug use or drug use or not, you're still left with a void, you know. I think when that ACE study that was done, you know, reckons that if you suffer like 4 or more adverse childhood experiences, right, than somebody who potentially has 1, then you're 11 times more likely to end up in the prison system. You're 11 times more likely to use Class A drugs. Yeah, you're 7 times more likely to end up in violent crime. Do you know what I mean? It's like the writing's on the wall in many ways. So I think that, you know, man, for some people, abstinence is the only way, but then we still left with where do you go for the treatment support for that other stuff? And I think that's where we need a real joined up holistic approach, right? Because you get into that whole narrative, don't you, about like mental health teams will go, oh, well, we can't work with him because he's too much off his head on the fucking drugs, so we need to sort the drugs out before we'll see him. And then the other side of it is like kind of you're too fucking batshit crazy for the fucking alcohol or drug services to work with you. And it's kind of like, you know, man, it's like we need a holistic response, I think.
We definitely do. I had a thought process there, but I'm you know, I have a penchant for fucking losing my train of thought, so I'm trying to throw a few words out there and hope that I would get it back. But it just feels like, yeah, there's so many people being left behind, or being driven, should I say, to a point of extremity. Right, bang, I cannot progress further than this, or, you know, XYZ will happen that is, you know, terminal, say. Do you know, that kind of way? That's what I know. That's a really poor generalization, but it feels to me that you almost have to reach that tipping point where you do end up dropping everything because you recognize that it's detrimental. But the reality of the situation is that there is, more than likely you're going to have progressive mental oscillation over time that just sort of that leads you to that point. But you could have went, like, when you were saying, oh, one more day, or one more day. I would argue that if there was an approach of, more sort of a harm reduction-esque approach that would allow people to reduce over time in that regard, you would give people more of an opportunity to seek the treatment at an earlier stage. Now that isn't necessarily a definite. I'm not saying that that is what's going to happen, but surely offering that to people is the way forward. It can't not be. Do you know, that kind of way? Does that make sense?
But I think absolutely, man, and I think I agree with you. And I think the thing that I should say is that, I think that among drug and alcohol treatment providers nationally, there's areas of really great practice and there's areas which aren't so great. Do you know what I mean? Mm. I think the one thing for me that work that I'm doing with Danny Ahmed down at foundations and kind of with We Are With You and other organizations like that is the safest place for people to be is in treatment and support. Do you know what I mean? And getting people on optimum doses of the right medication is definitely what is available in some places. It's not a case of that it's a race to the finish line and you come into drug treatment and we've got to get you off a methadone script or we've got to get you off a buprenorphine script. I think maybe 5 or 10 years ago there was maybe that kind of desire that we're going to get you in, get you on 150 mil and then we're going to drop you 10 mil. There was kind of lots of people going, fucking hell, I feel like I'm coming down way too quick here. And I don't think that narrative is kind of as it is anymore. I think that kind of people do generally get heard when they come into treatment and support in terms of the pharmacological intervention, right? I think in lots of cases around OST, for instance, opioid substitution therapy, then that offers kind of a really good offer, which gets made. For some places, we don't get them up to the optimal dose. Do you know what I mean? So it's a real struggle to get people, let's give people what they need. Do you know what I mean? So you've got the clinical guidelines for substance misuse management that would kind of tell you what an optimal dose is. And then it's really difficult sometimes for people to kind of get up there. But why do we make it so difficult just generally for fucking people whose lives are fucking difficult anyway? If you kind of think about me and my story and the people who I see people in Middlesbrough who've got no fucking legs, they're homeless, right? They've got no legs, they're homeless, they've got no teeth, their world's falling apart, their head's fucking smashed and it's almost as if society wants to make it more difficult for that person. And so it's not even about drug and alcohol treatment support services for me. It's kind of something's gone wrong with us as a fucking society where we feel as though the most vulnerable people in our communities are the people who we should demonize, vilify, stigmatize, and fucking shame. And I just don't I was going to say I don't get it. I do get it, actually. I know why that happens because the press and the media portray us as fucking villains. Yeah. And they write headlines like zombies on our street or junkies on Hippie Green, and they take photographs of, I remember seeing a photograph, it sticks with us, man, round the back of one alleyway around the back of Newcastle, and there's a picture of a guy who's lying on the floor. He's not asleep. He looks as though he's went over. Do you know what I mean? His body's all contorted and that. And then just in the distance around the corner, there's a road sweeper. With these buggy things that they push, right? Yeah. And you can just see the road sweeper picking something up. And I'm thinking the fucking rubbish is getting more fucking attention there than that poor fucker lying down there. Is he alive? Is he breathing? Somebody's took the time to photograph that. Did you go and give that person a shake? Did you go and see if he's fucking breathing? Yeah. Why don't they matter? Because you know what? People look at me and go, oh, George, we are masters and you've met fucking Joanna Lumley and you do all this work. I matter now, but you fucker, you wouldn't have given us a light of day 10 years ago. I just feel I don't know, man. You triggered me there.
No, sorry, you're right, though.
No, you are entirely right. And George, you've always fucking mattered. Every life matters. I hate this bullshit moralizing coming from these pseudo-Christians who are like, that life is the most precious thing as long as you conform to our worldview. It's this neoliberalistic fucking bullshit idea of going that you've made a bad decision. You've chosen to take these drugs and to have these mental health problems. It's your personal failure. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, man up and sort your shit out. It's a bullshit narrative that gets perpetuated consistently and continually. And it's like you said before of you hate recreational as a term. Me too. I hate medicinal as well. You hit the nail on the head. Therapeutic. There is a reason we go back to take drugs. You then have a difficult experience from the external. Everyone's going, oh my God, your girlfriend's left you. You're homeless and blah, blah, blah. Why are you still using? Why are you still whatever? And it's like, because unlike you fuckers out here, this thing helps my internal world. My heart stops aching. I stop hearing the beating of it through my ears. The vein in my forehead restricts, and I can hear beyond the cacophonous sound of this screaming in my head to go, I'm going to go sit in the woods and do fuck all, and it's going to be beautiful. And they want to demonize you for that. They want to remove an analgesic from a man in pain. That, again, you've hit the nail on the head. It's immoral. And it's because they're moralizing in this argument and going, you've done something wrong and you're continuing to do it wrong. Instead of going, okay, here's the symptom and consequence of an action. What is the reason for it? What is the root cause?
But I think this is why what we're doing now is so important, right? So for me, like, I've kind of just been on my soapbox there, right? Like that, right? But then it's kind of one of them, right? It's a great word, which I like to park in your mind. It's kind of epistemology. It's a lush word, isn't it, right? And I can't tell you fucking definitively what it means, but I can tell you what it kind of, it means how do we know what we know? Right, epistemological studies got something to do with like the study of kind of how about life and learning and knowledge and all that, right? And I feel for me in some ways, like what I've got to remember, right, is I can get on my soapbox and I can rant about they and them and fucking all of that, right, and the moralizing and all of that stuff, right? But people have been programmed to believe this shit, you know what I mean, right? So it's like sometimes people's minds are blown when you think that like 3.2 million people used an illegal drug last year in the UK. That's like that's 9% of the UK population. It's fucking massive. 1 in every 11 people in the UK used an illegal drug. And you can kind of get people going, wow, that is kind of a canny bit. And then you go, so like that 3.2 million people, they're not all in treatment, you know, like there's only kind of 10% of people who then go on to develop kind of like health harms which are attached to that drug use. Do you know what I mean? Or they have dual diagnosis issues, right? So what that suggests, I'm not a mathematician, but that there's a huge fucking population of people who are taking drugs like MDMA, they're using other kinds of substances that they're kind of, whether it's for a therapeutic purpose or kind of just because drugs are fun. Right? Do you know what I mean? Like, let's start fucking being real, man. I teach cops, man, right? I teach cops, every cop in the Northeast, right? I teach them drug and alcohol awareness and harm prevention, right? I go into Durham Police, for instance. I'll go to Northumbria. I was teaching drug expert witnesses 4 weeks ago, right? And they're all getting carried away, you know, because they've just got this potty fucking mouth Geordie bloke tattoo going, come on, like, all energized, right? And, right, stand up, you fucker, if you ever took a drug, and they go, oh, whoa, they remember where they are, you know what I mean? Because we live in this, we live in a society, right? We live in a society where you kind of carry shame if you're a drug user, and whether you're a problematic drug user, I fucking hate that term as well, somebody who's disenfranchised through substances, or whether you're just somebody who uses substances and you haven't got any issues with it, you kind of still really struggle to come forward and be honest about that stuff. And I think for me, you know, that's why I've always wanted to be an open book, and why I absolutely kind of respect you lads, and then the Michael Fishers of the world, and Chris, and Dr. Carl Hart, you know what I mean? These guys who just come out and go, you know what, man? Like, we smoke a bit of fucking dope. That doesn't make us bad people. But what we have to do, right, or at least what we, or the proverbial we, or me, my job's to change people's minds on this, man. Do you know what I mean? My job's to be able to say to people, so like the Misuse of Drugs Act's like, it's unjust, it's not grounded in science, and we need to do something to change it. Because, you know, like, I can get really frustrated in rooms with people who go, oh, well, this is terrible, and that's fucking terrible, and we're sick of this, and when's somebody going to change that? And I want to go, yeah, man, you fucking change it.
Yeah, when
like,
you
stand up in this fucking room, you fucking
right,
do
lad.
It, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
Stop. Let's stop blaming commissioners. Let's stop blaming fucking drug treatment. Let's stop, because it's all this blame culture, right? Like, Simba, I say you going fucking mental, mate. You fucking run yourself fucking ragged, like mad as a ship's cat, fucking all over trying to make things better. You know, Mackay, you're the same, and Fisher's the fucking same. Danny Ahmed's the fucking same. I'm running around. This is me, not on cocaine, man. What was I like when I was on it? Well, I know what I was like when I was on it. But when I was on it, I was subdued, man, because I've definitely got some undiagnosed ADHD going on. Do you know what I mean? Definitely stimulants fucking grounded me, not made me high. Like, but like we all fucking saw. It's as if we're waiting for everybody else to make the changes. And there's that lovely quote, man, which is like, be the change that you want to see, man.
Good lad.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
good
fucking,
lad.
and that for me is like, that for me is kind of where I live my world right now, you know, is I've been kind of really creative to push on doors to get me in places like Labour campaign for drug policy reform. I'm not the most politically astute person in the world, you know what I mean? But I've seen that as an opportunity then to be able to get myself in, to sit down with Ron Hogg, bless him, do you know what I mean, and Mike Barton, like to have the ear of like Jason Harwin, the National Police Chief Council lead for drugs, do you know what I mean? Jason and I have got a really fantastic relationship on the phone, we communicate, great work with cops like Jason Q down at Thames Valley, and then you kind of get into a place where you start making a difference with this shit, with Naloxone, and you start, what we have to do, man, is we have to kind of just help people in communities to recognize that nice people take drugs and to be able to sit and have some of those conversations, but conversations which come from a place of like real honesty and education rather than, well, fucking, I think all drugs are great. Well, why? Well, because they're fucking great when you're off your nut on it. How mate? You know, let's get into those conversations where we say, like, you know, like, MDMA is a class A drug. You get caught with a quantity of MDMA and you're going to get put in prison for up to 15 years, you know. But like, did you know only 71 people died last year from taking MDMA? And that's a real tragedy that 71 people died. However, if you look at the relative harms of MDMA and you put that against alcohol, for instance, so it's just short of 8,000 people died last year from alcohol. Yet that's legal. We can buy it in the shops and it tells you on the back of the bottle how to drink it safely. So, you know, a lot of the problems that come with regards to drugs and drug deaths and all that is because we're not extending the same courtesy to people who use drugs to help them to stay alive, you know, and I really struggle with that. I do some work with Way of the Loop as well, and one of the pharmacists, I was trying to be a clever shite the other day. I was going on what was I going on? BBC 5 Live or something. I think it's great when you know fucking pharmacists. And I think, right. Because I said, can I just check something out with you? I said, I want to talk about fucking alcohol and all that, right? I was right on one. I said, am I right in saying alcohol's fucking ethanol? And this pharmacist said, well, yes, it is. Do you know what I mean? I was like, right, what's the chemical formula for fucking ethanol? Because I didn't want to just go, oh, you know, like one of the biggest problems that we have in society today is alcohol. I wanted to say it's H2SO whatever. Do you know what I mean? And then he told us that, but then he sent us a text later on and said, did you know it's also just one carbon atom away from acetone? And I think, what the fuck's acetone? It's nail varnish fucking remover, isn't it? Yeah. And I just think, you know, we live in a fucking really strange world where the vast majority of the population of the UK pretty much drink fucking nail varnish remover every fucking weekend and think that that's okay. But then what we're going to do is we're going to demonize somebody fucking who's a gardener. Do you know what I mean? It's like, fuck me, who grows a few plants?
Or a baker.
So I don't know, man. I absolutely, man.
Do you know what I mean?
I just kind of feel obligated to use my lived experience to speak from a place of truth in lots of different environments. Do you know what I mean? But kind of at the core, what I'm trying to do is get people to fucking humanize people who take drugs because we're not bad people.
That's
you know,
the key, man. And you know, like in this world of immediacy and polarization and dilution. For anybody that's not familiar with any of those terms, please go back and listen to the rest of the episodes of this podcast because we've talked about them at length. It's a nice little plug there. Now I've lost what I'm saying. Fuck.
Well, I'll take the opportunity then to jump in. Yeah, you draw an interesting comparison. I mean, Dr. David Nutt was fired, and the same year he was fired from the ACMD was the year he released a paper entitled Ecstasy compared with equestrianism, what are the harms? And he showed that horse riding is far more harmful to the individual and potentially to society than the consumption of MDMA. Also, the consumption of MDMA onto the individual and the wider society, it is credited to a lot of people that they die down in football firm violence, and sort of more community cohesion that developed in the early 90s was entirely down to the rave scene. I was part of the second wave of the rave scene that then saw the commingling of many diverse subgroups and genres through the consumption of these substances. People who were quite racist, bigoted, xenophobic, and hateful of others, and very discriminatory of other lifestyles, all of a sudden started to recognize there is commonality here, there is decency in our shared human experience. Alcohol, as you said, is responsible, according to World Health statistics, World Health Organization statistics, for 5% of all deaths. So 1 in 20 of all deaths in the world occurs from the consumption of alcohol. As you said, it costs the UK 21 billion currently to police, and the cost to NHS and to the wider society of the consumption of alcohol. And yet it is not a scheduled drug. Tobacco and alcohol are not scheduled. They are not considered within it, because if they were taken and listed under the criteria for the scheduling, they would both be Schedule 1 drugs. If we suddenly did that overnight, our society would collapse. The British live on binge drinking. Last year during the pandemic, alcohol consumption went through the goddamn roof. The fact that it's taxed helps offset some of the harms to society. The same could be true of these substances, that if we then take that statistic of 1 in 10 people will develop problematic relationship. Again, I agree. I dislike the terminology of it, but I'll use it for continuity here. A problematic relationship with a substance. If we then regulated the sale to the other 90%, we could use that to pay for their treatment. And as you say, put it as therapy, because this is what I believe is you could take a chunk of that 90% of those people of the profits and put it into schools. So if we stopped people like you or I being abused and being traumatized within institutions, within education systems, then we wouldn't grow up to have those potential precipitous factors that would make us potentially likely to have a problematic relationship with substances.
Yeah, man. But equally as well, it's kind of about, isn't it about also, it's about like, it's just about speaking from a place of truth, you know, like you talk about like young people there as well. You got to do a lot of drugs education in schools, and it's always a bit like long before you get to work with the kids, you've got to touch base with the head teachers and the what's the word I'm looking for? They're not trustees, what are they called? School governors, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got to kind of almost court with them to get them to realise that, like, they go, so kind of what kind of message are you going to be portraying? And I'm saying, well, it's not going to be a fucking Grange Hill, Danny Kendall, just say fucking no one. That's for sure, because that doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? Just say no, bollocks, doesn't fucking work, right? You're on your drugs, keep more and more people taking drugs. That shit doesn't work, right? But it's really bizarre, isn't it? That kind of like schools worry about kind of safeguarding and keeping kids safe and all the rest of it. But like the most important bits of information, advice and guidance that they need around substances don't get truth, because a lot of schools go, what you're going to educate the kids how to take drugs. I'm going to go, well, no, not really, but I am going to tell them how to fucking stay safe when they're doing them, because young people are taking drugs. Do you know what I mean? And they're taking risks around the drugs. So obviously, like it has to be a case for me, you know, like it's almost a preamble for me is like the safest way to take drugs is not to take them. Right? Because like not everybody's fucking sensible. We're in a time where we've got organized crime gangs who are in control of the drug supply. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Kind of like we have a bit of education on my side when it comes to kind of purchasing drugs or having drugs tested and all the rest of it. But young people aren't able to do that. You know, I worked it out once. I'm sure there's something like 24,000 hours, right, that a young person spends in education, from kind of going into junior school to leaving in secondary school, right? There's 24,000 hours, right, that they spend in school. And there's not any more than 10 of those hours which are spent formally teaching them about drugs and alcohol. And you think, fucking hell, that's bizarre, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? So for me, kind of, it is about going into schools and being absolutely upfront and honest with young people and saying, you know, kind of, like you need to be really aware of the risks and staying safe. But it's almost as if like society doesn't want to hear that. Do you know what I mean? And then also what we do is we deliver that drugs education in isolation in schools. So the schools will say, oh, well, you come in and speak to our sixth formers. I go, aye. But after I've spoke to fucking you and all your teachers and all the families as well, because it's pointless, like kind of giving a really impactful drugs education session around telling the kids what you're going to do about staying safe, and your parents aren't going to go mad when the parents or the teachers haven't had the luxury of going through that exploration as well to kind of challenge some of those, I don't know, those unconscious biases and all those things that exist, man. So
that's exactly what it is.
I don't know. It's weird. Weird.
Sorry, we've got quite far through this, and I've just realised George has got like a 2 or 3 second delay when we speak. You pulled up some Naloxone before. Could you tell us who Naloxone Man is?
Well, he's a fucking idiot. That's who he is. Like, look at this, man. Have you seen this? Look at these. Look at these. These here are pre-Noxad pants. Right? He keeps coming into my house, leaving his shit everywhere. I think him and my wife have a bit of a fucking thing going on. No, you know what it is? I'll tell you, right? So I've been doing like work with people who use drugs for 20 years. It was a couple of years ago. I thought, fucking now, like I'm working with opiate users, and I don't have naloxone. And if I'm honest, I was really naive as to what naloxone was. I thought I need to get a kit. When I understood that it could reverse drug-related deaths, I thought I need to get a kit. So I got onto Twitter. I'm a bit of a Twitter freak. Got in touch with the organisation locally and said, "Can I get naloxone from your local service?" "Yes, absolutely. It won't be a problem." So I phoned them up. I said, "Oh, my name's George. Can I come down, get some training, get one of them naloxone kits?" I said, "We don't do it." I said, "You do, man. You definitely do it. You know what I mean? I've been told by your national organisation that you do it. So can I come and get some?" "Oh, well, can I just take your name and your phone number and I'll get someone to phone you back?" I go, "Yeah, not a problem." So I wait a couple of days, no phone call. I phone back again, speak to somebody different. "Can I get one of them naloxone kits?" "Oh, no, we don't stock it." I said, "You fucking do, man. Do you know what I mean? Well, do you mind if I take your name and your phone number?" I'm thinking, hang on a minute, what's the crack? Yeah. And so then, I honestly, over about a period of about 6 weeks, this is going back probably just short of 2 years ago, right? To and fro, and I ended up speaking to a harm reduction nurse. I said, "Naloxone?" She said, "Yes, I'm responsible for the training and supply of naloxone." I was like, "Hallelujah! Can I get one?" She said, "Who are you?" I said, "George Charlton." She said, "Who?" I said, "Really?" No. I said, "Look, man, I'm working in like," I said, "I'm working with people with drug and alcohol problems all the time, you know, kind of, I'm led to believe that the only requirement to carry naloxone is you're coming into contact with people who use drugs, and I am that." She said, "Well, look, I'll drop you an email. I'll just ask me boss." And I kind of said, "Right, okay." And then I got an email that sent back off her that said, "Well, very sorry, George, but we can't action your request." And I was like, I was fucking raging, man. What? Local drug and alcohol treatment service has got this stuff to save people's lives, and I can't get a fucking kit. Do you know what I mean? It was mental. So I went on a mission. I thought I'm not having it, because the first thing I wanted to do was go on social media and discredit the organisation, who shall remain nameless on this podcast as well, right? But I thought, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be better than that. So I ended up going up to Scotland, and I spent a couple of days in Scotland with the peers that they had up there. They had people who were in recovery, who go out into the community and go into like recovery cafes and brick buildings, and they identify people and train and supply them with naloxone. I came back from there just feeling like, fucking God, I really want to do this, man. And went and pushed on Foundation's door with Danny Ahmed and said, "Danny, how I want to do this," you know what I mean? And we ended up developing a really brilliant peer-to-peer naloxone training and supply program that doesn't say that you have to be in recovery to be a volunteer. I think that's fucking discriminatory, do you know what I mean? But I also think some of the best trainers of naloxone are people who have got living experience of addiction. They are networked and tapped into the community of people who use drugs, who are deemed as hidden populations. Again, not a term that I fucking like, because they're not hidden. Because I find them, and the drug users find them, because we go out of our brick buildings and we go and fucking find them. They're not hidden populations. It's fucking, in some cases, it's treatment providers that are hidden. And then what we do is we supply this kit, 3 little twists. People get inside. Inside, you've got a 2 mil pre-filled syringe of naloxone hydrochloride. You have a little pin here, which you can pop off the end. Take that bit off. Screw the needle on. Look, it's almost as if I fucking had this planned, isn't it? And then you're going to take the cap off the end to expose the pin. When you administer naloxone, it goes in the top of the arm or the fatty part of a leg, and it's literally straight in. Inject to the first black line, remove it, we put it back in its case, wait 2 to 3 minutes to see if a person responds, go back in, another 2 mil, and then you're going to keep doing that until such time as the person comes around. Like naloxone works, it competes for the receptor in the brain where opioids sit. And what we know of those people who've been dying, like 4,359 people who died of drug-related deaths last year, over half of all those deaths involved an opioid. So this drug, naloxone, is going to save people's lives. What release reckoned down in London 2018 was that only 16% of people who that out of the 100% of people who needed, only 16% of people got it. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it was about how do we develop networks of people who we train up as naloxone champions, and get them going out into their communities, saving the lives of their mates. And we built an awesome project in Middlesbrough, and then We Are With You came pushing on the door, developed a project for them in Redcar. Then they made a commitment in The Guardian to roll it out nationally in every one of their services, which is absolutely fantastic in terms of the peer-to-peer approach. So all of these projects have naloxone, and all of the clients who come into services will get access to naloxone because the workers will do a quick bit of training and give them it. But there's a massive cohort of people in the UK who don't come to treatment. So if they're not coming to treatment, then they don't get access to this. Do you know what I mean? So we did that in Redcar and kind of got that rolled out. I've started doing that work down in Worcester with Cranstown, which has been absolutely fantastic. I'm heading down to Wales in a couple of weeks to the Welsh Government are supporting the development of peer-to-peer naloxone training and supply programs down there, which I'm also building with Kaleidoscope and people who use drugs. But you know, for me, man, it's like this, right? I'm nothing without the peers, nothing at all. I've got more patter than a fortnight train, haven't I, right? So I'm a man of many words, right? I can kind of flirt with people, make people feel energized and feel good, but I'm fucking nothing. When I go down to Wales, I know nothing about Newport, where I'm going. I know nothing about where the drug user networks and drug user markets are. It's all about the peers, you know, and they're the ones who make these projects really, really special. So if we can do that with naloxone, can we do it with secondary needle exchange? Well, absolutely, yes, we can. So let's train peers of how to take naloxone out, not just naloxone in a bag into the community, but now we're going to put clean injecting equipment and crack pipes and all of that stuff in a bag. And then when we're there, you know, I've went to some places, man, and it's like you think, fuck me. Like there's a place in Linthorpe Road where people are living around the back of there, and it's just covered in human shit and piss and drugs paraphernalia and needles and dirty mattresses. And I always remember saying to Ricky, one of the peers, Ricky, what do you say here? And Ricky says, this is somebody's home. And you think, fucking hell, it is somebody's home. This is what our war on drugs has done, is push people to fucking use in places and spaces like that. So kind of one of our aspirations is a drugs litter project as well. So what Danny and I have done is thought, well, you know what, let's be the change that we want to see. So we've just legitimised a community interest company which puts people with lived experience of addiction front and centre, right at the fucking heart of it. And we're going to build, we'll call it the Harm Reduction Union, the Middlesbrough Harm Reduction Union. And we're going to build chapters up and down the fucking country who can adopt the vision and principles, which is that peers should be front and centre at the heart of fucking everything, but not you have to be in recovery.
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I'm just on a mission. That's it, lads, man. I'm on a fucking mission. And I love it.
You really are, brother. You really are. We won't keep you any longer. I look forward to, we'll obviously get you back on the podcast sometime in the near future. Hopefully you'll be able to give us an update on the rollout of these programs. I doff my proverbial cap to you. I really do. I mean, like I say, anybody that can
right back at you, man.
That can go through kind of the life that you have gone through, and not only find your own peace and find your own comfort and desire to live, but also to find the passion and the commitment and the desire to want to, in the face of some incredible opposition in our government, in international legislation, to do the right thing by your peers. Exactly that. These other humans, these people behind the statistics that fall beyond the remit of traditional treatment and recovery.
Yeah.
And I think that is a truly a wonderful and commendable thing.
It is. And just let's fucking restore humanity, because that's the fucking key. That's how we're going to get anywhere. It's true, man.
Yeah.
And what I'll say,
#humanized drug users.
What I'll say to you is, George, is one thing is keep that energy that you have, man, because you know you were saying those goosebumps. There's about 6 or 7 fucking times through this podcast, and even the first time I heard you speak, they get transferred through the digital energy or whatever. Honestly, because here's the thing, you're that kind of person. Like my cousin has that energy that you have, and whenever he lights up and whenever he tells a story, he lights up, and that kind of, and that is completely transferable. We need people like you, man. We absolutely do. So keep doing it.
And you know what, man? And I hear that, man. But like when it comes down to it, for me, it's like this, right? Like fucking without all of that in my life, then I wouldn't be where I am right now. So I have I genuinely mean this, I kind of have gratitude. Like those experiences, I was hurt during those experiences growing up. You know what I mean? I hurt a lot of people as well in terms of my drug use and all that, but it brought me to a fucking place now where I'm in a position to be able to help people to live right. And man, it's like my dad died 2 weeks ago, and it's like fucking my hero. I lost my mom 16 years ago. My dad died 2 fucking weeks ago, like, and he was my fucking hero, and he was my best mate, and he was a bit like the Kurgan of Highlander. He was going to live forever in my mind, and I think sometimes, man, we forget that there's no fucking trial run here, man. Like, this is it right now, today, man. Like, today is what it's about, and I'm blessed to have fucking been on a call with you lads today with fucking drug user activists just like me. Do you know what I mean? But like, we don't all have to be gobshites like me and give people fucking goosebumps. Do you know what I mean? It's just about like, are we prepared to just kind of show some love and compassion for a fellow human being? Like, do we just, rather than take one step to the right of a homeless person and walk around him, can we not just like give him a quid, but can we also give him 5 minutes of our time? And kind of find out who's he and what's he about? Because it's his one shot on this planet. And I think like the sooner we realize that fucking like that this is it, man. This is it, then we can then that's where the love is for me, man. God, fucking 2 weeks ago I lost my fucking best pal and that, but you know what, man, no sadness, only fucking pride, man, because that man was the epitome of unconditional love when everyone around him was saying, you get rid of that fucking lad because he's a fucking disgrace and don't go down with a sinking ship and he'll always make you fucking miserable, and he didn't fucking listen, man, and he did nothing but show me fucking love and compassion and warmth and hope and belief. And look what happens, man. And I want to finish on this one, right? Your love has fucking power, man.
Yes.
Your love has power.
Yes, and it was the power of his love and belief that I believe is what has got you sat here today. Yeah. So what a wonderful gesture to end on.
Done it again, look.
Folks, you can keep up with George at GeorgeCharlton.com. We will share links to his counselling services as well below, as well as some of the links to peer support groups as how you can get involved if you feel that getting training and access to Naloxone would help you as well. George, thank you very much. We won't keep you any longer. We'll let you get to your prior commitments. It's been a pleasure, honestly, brother. I look forward to being able to share a room with you soon and chat some shit and actually, get together.
Definitely. Thank you so much,
I want one of them hugs, man. Never mind chatting the shit.
Yeah.
Big hug, right?
Proper
love these
hug.
guys.
All
Take
right.
care.
Thanks. Peace and love, George. We'll see you later, man. Bye.
Peace out. Bye.
Oh, the energy off that man is unbelievable. He'll calm down now, folks, for a little bit.
Here's the thing. I was just thinking about this, right? Do we legitimately want to subject people to us talking utter shite when there's so much of that you just have to fucking process? Not in a bad way, but I'm just saying that the energy that man has is enviable. It really, really is. And to be able to sort of just be so bouncy and bubbly and that kind of way, have that, and fucking hell, I don't know. You see, I'm already ruining it. I don't even know what to fucking say in comparison.
Not at all. We're slowing it down. Like, it's George's, because he's obviously been on this for such a long time and he's really honed his craft and his skills. That I heard that was a horrible sound.
Welcome to my life.
Oh my god, sorry about that, guys. I didn't know we were doing ASMR on the podcast.
People
today.
pay for that,
Well, there you go, folks. Check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Simpa Life for more Maca cracks.
Top tier, you get a personal Maca crack recorded in high fidelity.
Yeah, we'll also be launching a competition. If you can guess which body part he is cracking, you could win.
We really want to open that can of worms.
Anyway, no, the point is, though, that we can use this time to kind of explore more of some of the concepts that George spoke of there. And because he is so informed and passionate, he touched on quite a lot of the subjects lightly, but it was because of the limited time that we had. I mean, we could have had him for 4 fucking hours here, and we still would have felt like we haven't got enough of the information in his kind of story of him. Like I say, guys, you got a very brief introduction to his story there at the start when he introduced himself, but I'm not gonna. I'm not. All I'm gonna say is that we will have him on again, and George will. He always seems to express his life in a different way. I've been lucky enough to, I think, 3 times I've seen him speak, twice in person, once on a digital platform, and same every
times you've seen him twice in person, speak once.
However you make that sentence work, I don't know. Look at you,
3, 2, 1.
Semantics. Anyway, so yeah, the point is, look, we didn't even get to touch on the work that he's been doing with police, with helping to get naloxone into the hands of police, which is we've already seen that deployed in the field and actively saved lives. Like I say, the fact that he speaks so highly of lived experience, and I think he froze. Am I tripping?
No,
you're just staring into nothingness.
I'm telling you, like this is. I'm even still processing the energy here. So I'm sort of a bit like, I don't know. That's like, I needed that.
It's an uplift. It really is an uplift.
It is, but it is transferable. It is. There are people that are like that. Down in their core, you know, that kind of way, that just have this draw. Like, honest, I'm hooked on every single word the man says. Do you know, that kind of way? It's yeah. I really hope that people go back and listen and listen to this a couple of times. You know, because honestly, he like I've been looking forward to George coming on since we started this, because I remember. So the first time that my experience was, we were at the Durham Autumn Expo. So it was in the Autumn Expo, and the first time around, when you go to an event like that, your mind is sort of going grand. It's like Amsterdam. I can just walk around and fucking smoke away and consume it to my heart's content and chill the fuck out. And that was the first experience. Second experience, we made more of an effort to actually go to the panels and the educational talks and stuff like that. Just similar enough to what we do in the podcast, except, you know, live. And I would just remember I had chilled out. I was set mid-row on the back going, grand, this is going to be, you know, 5-6 people on a panel. Everybody's just going to be nice and chill, like myself and Simpa normally chat away. And then George comes on, he's like, "Whoa!" The fucking starts roaring. I'm like, "Whoa, shit! I need to sit the fuck up here." And it literally, everything was like that, and I couldn't get over it. Like, to a point where I remember the words that he said. I remember the start of the story, but there's no fucking way I'm taking that away from him, especially if we get him on again. It was so captivating and relatable, and it's quite fun. Not fun. It's quite funny to sort of you were pointing out relatability to your upbringing, for lack of a better term, in comparison to George's. Well, I mean, I found it relatable. Like, you know, there was points in my childhood when I was growing up, I was insufferable. I was a dickhead, you know, that kind of way. I pushed away everybody. I knew exactly what he meant when he was saying, like, schools were all nichey and cliquey, and you know, he found like that he didn't fit into any. That was fucking me. I was trying so fucking hard to fit into 10 of them all at once, that because I literally didn't fit into any of them. So I get it. But it's really, really telling is the accumulation of like traumatic experiences, like he said. What would he said? Like four plus or something.
4 plus adverse effects. I can't remember.
It scales up to like 10 times or 11 times more likely.
11 more times.
Yeah. But when he was saying that, it was like, well, you know, there is an awful lot of common ground between the three of us. It just so happens that the accumulation of those traumas, you know, obviously added to our individualized sort of environment, you know, that we're growing up, sort of dictate as to where we land on that sort of echelon of fucking shared experiences. That makes sense. Probably bottled out near the end there, but you know, it got a bit faffy. But it is interesting to say to ponder that, like, do you know, in that kind of way.
Yeah, there's an interesting school of thought in philosophy, and I can't remember what branch, so somebody chuck it in the comments if you happen to know what I'm about to talk about. Is that everything is determined. There is no free will. If you zoom out large enough from your life, exactly that mechanism occurs across everything. If everything has a measurable and determinable factor, everything is a logical consequence of everything else. So therefore, if you have these adverse effects in childhood, because you have the thing that the rate by which is 11-fold, you're more likely to, I think it's have
be involved in crime, was it? Or...
No, 11-fold to have a potential problematic, again, poor terminology, but a difficult relationship and a higher propensity for dependence of a substance. So what I think is then, if you look at that in this idea of then philosophy, that then it's almost a consequence once you've seen those events. So what if that's the thought process, you could intervene in this in, say, the years of puberty, the point of highest volatility. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's when therapy, that's when engagement needs to be there. That's when I had a hell of a lot of intervention personally in my life from all kinds of avenues, from child psychological services, from social services, from the state, from education service. Everything was involved in my life, and all of it was trying to steer and direct shit. When actually, if they'd had that mechanism and gone, oh fuck, look at where he's been and what he's gone through, let's look at the potential for what's going to come forward. And then, exactly as George spoke of we're getting better with this. We're getting a hell of a lot better with this. But for a lot of the treatment I was in for most of my life was exactly that. Until you're sober, you ain't getting shit. You're not. You can't. You can either wait until you are the worst of the worst and suicidal. You can go in and see crisis team, or that's it.
Yeah.
That was the spectrum. You either toe the line, take the SSRI, stop all drug use, and engage in the therapies we want. When what I was saying was, I'll titrate drug use, I'll limit alcohol consumption, and I'll try to sleep every night and engage in a better routine and engage in therapy.
Yeah.
And that was not an accepted compromise. Whereas now, especially with what I've been doing over the past several years, I mean, I've just finished a DBT course, group therapy, where in one of the slides, I actually got them to rewrite the slide because they'd put it down as drug use as being a problem, and I'd put substance abuse. Do you know what I mean? So even that kind of mechanism showing that there is now, they are willing to have that conversation. They are willing to engage with this. So I put on my health records a few years ago about microdosing LSD and psilocybin when I did the BBC documentary about LSD, as much as anything, as a defense in court, that if they ever came from me, yes, I utilize these substances, I microdose them for their therapeutic properties. They're currently not available as medications, and nor is there a legitimate route for me to take them holistically. So that's the best defense that I can have from that. And since doing that, I mean, that took a lot of fucking work. That took me actually going through several different GPs to find an individual that was willing to make that as a case note. So you can see why people then are struggling to engage with services if they're then told you're bad and that's bad. And I mean, the consumer ends up knowing far more than the fucking doctor.
Well, exactly, yeah. But the other thing, like, that's what the point I was trying to make, sort of halfway through the session there with George, was that if titration was offered as a viable course of action at an earlier stage, chances are you'd have an increased fucking
stabilizing effect.
No, you'd have an increased uptake.
Yeah.
In people that would be, you know what I mean? If that was there and an acceptable thing, so you were able to sort of identify, or have the epiphany at any stage, and not feel like almost like you have to get to that real tipping point to be taken seriously, to be, do you know, that kind of way? You sort of, you've got to erode away your fucking natural being in order to mold yourself into this fucking reconditioned and re-healthified, there's a word for you, version of yourself. Do you know what I mean? Fit into this model.
I think in a lot of ways, and something that I've had a problem with a lot of, especially abstinent-based recovery programs, is exactly that. It's almost, I term it in my own head, but I'm not sure how confident I am putting out to the world, of like the cult of wellness. of the people in recovery, exactly what George says, they then spend all their time talking about drugs and alcohol. They spend their time, not, in my opinion, not having conquered their addiction, but having, or their dependency, but having ceased it, being able to go, it's stopped. Whereas to me, the same way I got over tobacco in the past was I knew I'd stop tobacco when I could keep it in the house for weeks at a time and not touch it. Having access, same with alcohol, is I didn't have a problem particularly with alcohol. I just didn't like who I was when I was drunk. I didn't like the decisions I was making. I didn't like the beds I was waking up in. I didn't like the fights I was getting in. It was just not my crack. And so I decided to step away from not my crack, and you know what I mean. So I decided to sort of step away from that. But then now there's alcohol in the house, because every now and then, every very rare occasion, there will be, let's have a drink with something, as either a celebration or as an amplification of a situation, rather than a tool of obliteration. So that is me having controlled that. If I'd have then gone, oh my God, and I'd self-perpetuate that narrative, going, I can't go in a pub because I'll drink, and then if I drink, I'm in trouble again. And I think that's needs the narrative that isn't in recovery, that it's not a case of stopping. If you then slip and then accidentally, you know what I mean? If you would then end up consuming again, it doesn't then negate all of the other work. You're not back to zero all of a sudden. You're always moving forward. You may take a slight step to the side, but it is not a step backwards, as long as you are conscious of it and recognize it. Again, in that same DBT group, there was a guy there who had a problem with cocaine, and he was saying that how he used to abuse it and whatever else. And then he said 2 weeks ago, he had it for a session, and he only had a few lines. He had a couple of cans with it, and he was just like, wasn't a thing. Yeah, literally was then just like, woke up the next day a bit more hungover than he was intending to, and was just like, I didn't like that. I've been swimming in the sea. It stopped us doing that. So I was kind of like, all right. And then I sort of said to him, then look, dude, you haven't slipped or relapsed. You recovered. You've been able to take the substance again, and instead of going at fucking 5 a.m, shit, let's get a couple more grams, you know what I mean, and keep this party going and keep going and going and going. You've recognized and gone, oh, I'm done for the evening, I'm going to bed. You've then even woke up in the morning conscious of it and gone, was the reward of the experience of doing that by myself in the house versus the suffering that I can't then engage with the life that I wanted to worth it? Made the active choice and gone, I'm just not going to do that. That's recovery to me.
It is, yeah. I mean, there's an inherent fear of relapse because of the built up societal expectation. Do you know, that kind of way? These are the therapies that we want you to go through, so that when you do falter, it is it's not even subliminal. It's sort of semi-subliminal that sort of expectation is put upon you. You have let the system down. We've put all of this in fucking effort into fucking your rehabilitation, and you've bottled it. Guess what? Everybody bottles it, mate. Do you know that kind of way? Fucking hell. It can be applied to anything. It can be applied to fucking being consistent with your exercise, for fuck's sake. And that's for anybody that listens that doesn't consume anything, or thinks that they don't consume any sort of substance, while drinking their coffee and smoking their fag.
Well, even eating their sugar, man.
Eating sugar, which is cancer, basically. But yeah, I can't remember where I was going with it now. There's going to be an awful lot of this. I'm still processing George, man.
It's good. It's good. And I think that this has given, hopefully, our listeners and our audience an opportunity to kind of wind down with us, rather than I didn't want to just cut off after George's delivery. Even if we'd gone an hour and a half, I still think I would have wanted a bit of calm time on the recording, just to allow for the slower processing and to kind of, like I say, mull over some of the concepts that we discussed with George and expand them a little bit. Like we said about the naloxone, it's quite interesting that a lot of companies now are developing other antagonists, other drugs that fit to the receptors that are not psychoactive, that don't then have sedatory or respiratory sedation effects, so then they can reduce overdose. The other side of this is then drugs being used to help people get off drugs. So Ben Sessa at the clinics down in Bristol, they're using MDMA to treat alcoholism currently.
Didn't I also hear, not to semi-gloss over, I was checking an unexpected message there. Didn't I also hear that they were inventing a synthetic cannabinoid to fucking do the same thing as, say, what Naloxone? Is it Naloxone? Naloxone? I can't actually pronounce it.
Naloxone.
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 Yeah, are they not doing the synthetic?
I haven't seen anything personally, but it is not only probable, it's entirely possible, and likely, because think about it. I mean, if we're perpetuating in this world where, I'm not going to say the myth of skunk psychosis, because some people do have adverse effects and can suffer psychosis as a result of consumption of cannabis. A lot of these will be down to latent pesticides, fertilizers, and other chemical compounds that are left within and through the cultivation process in a criminalized market. But also the people that then do have these events have precipitous factors. There are other things that would have led up to this. Cannabis in and of itself does not cause psychosis. Otherwise, everyone that takes cannabis would get psychosis. We discussed this recently with coffee, that I've suffered effects of caffeine-induced psychosis. But that's not to say that then caffeine causes psychosis. In people that have a precipitous sort of makeup, shall we say, and a likelihood or propensity to have these experiences, which I do, unfortunately, then used in excess, then used on, say, an empty stomach, for example, also used in conjunction with other substances that would then amplify the metabolism of caffeine, then resulted in that one or two occasions in me having that psychosis-like event. But having known and experienced those types of events on other substances and in other from life events like relationship breakups and things like that, I knew how to deal with the situation, so I was able to walk myself through it. So the education I had and the lived experience helped me lessen that experience, rather than going, I'm losing my fucking mind, amplifying the situation and getting caught within the anxiety and stress that it would induce. And I think that if we could provide that education to other areas, it's then just a case of, as we've discussed several times in this podcast, it's like nuts. We just package things that have got cannabinoids in and go, if you've got not an allergen, but a propensity to have a negative effect from taking cannabinoids, don't take cannabinoids. In the same way that if you're a vegan, you don't eat meat, you don't eat meat.
Yeah. How do we break down the barrier of resistance? Or do you know what I mean? Like when George was talking about talking in schools and stuff like that, and it's 10 hours in an isolated environment after being semi-vetted by the fucking governors and the headmaster or the headmistress, or the head teacher, should I say, at this stage. I can see it, especially because an awful lot of our schools have a religious structure to them. So an awful lot of that is going to cause resistance.
We should think of sex education in schools,
right?
So drugs are still controversial and there's legality issues and all of that. Yeah, look at sex education in school, right?
There you go.
It's a fucking joke. None of it, right? I know this is obviously going to be quite a hard topic for us, probably some people to hear, and there's a lot of people that I feel are somewhat
person the fuck up.
Overzealous of their protection of children, or their belief in their protection of children. But we have to teach children about pleasure, about responsibility, about consent, about more than just the mechanics and the biology of this situation. They need to be taught about the consequences. They need to be not just STIs. They need to be taught about the social consequences, getting fucking pregnant, for fuck's sake, relationship structures, etc. These things need to be discussed. It shouldn't just be left up to a child, the peak of hormone drivenness, to be thrown out into the world and expect not to fuck shit up. Do you know what I mean? So if we're at that point, because there's still so much moralizing, we're going, but we shouldn't teach them. Who are you to make their fucking choices for them? They were born with an innate ability and, frankly, a desire and drive to engage in sexual behavior. What it is and who they choose to do it with is their own prerogative, and that should forever remain that. But if our government, if our structure of education, if any of this is worth anything, it is to provide people with basic information, access to education and to knowledge for them to make a best informed decision. Yet there's still some schools that will not fucking teach contraception because it goes against, as you said before, their moral inclinations. So exactly that. How the fuck do we then get accurate, reflective, unbiased, non-stigmatizing and non-persecutive drug education onto the syllabus? That is a long fucking way. So we need people like George to be able to wiggle through all of that bullshit bureaucracy to get there and go, you know what, kids? Yeah, most people that take drugs, one of a fucking problem
is broken. like every other fucking system, the policing system, as we've seen recently, which I definitely do not want to talk about right now because I definitely have to wrap this up in soon, and that is we almost need an entire episode on that, especially for what we've seen recently.
Yeah, that may be a good opportunity for us to pull Neil Woods back in as a guest in the near future.
That would be definitely. Fucking hell, I can't believe it. Anyway, just to sort of reel it back in before I get tangentially pulled away into the police. Yeah, tangentially. The education system, having been in it myself, is terrifying. It's fucking terrifying. It's like the jumping through the hoops, the like the companies that are there to sort of ensure everything is running solid and give solid ratings and all of this. It's utter horseshit. I tried my best not to fucking name them there, but it's really obvious who I'm talking about. It's horseshit. It's absolute fucking nonsense. It is what we were saying. Conform to this curriculum here. Fucking digest it. That's the attitude still, man. Do you know what I mean? And the only fucking difference is you're not being beaten. You're not being, being bludgeoned with belts and fucking rulers and what.
In other ways.
In other ways, you know what I mean?
They're not punishing the individual now. They're punishing the class. They're punishing the
all
school.
the time. There's this attitude, and this is our fucking problem, right? As from a society's perspective, this is our problem globally. Is we have this fucking uncontrollable desire to resist anything that's new, that's change. Do you know what I mean? That's like oh, we can't do that because this works and we've already got this and it's going to change everything, and we always sort of weaponize it by some sort of unspoken radicalization or fucking decoupling of the current zeitgeist. Do you know, that kind of way? Oh, that's going to change all of our traditions and all of this. I've heard this shit. Like, this isn't going to be, there's no Ireland of old anymore. There's no England of old. Oh, it used to be fucking brilliant back then. Every generation has this problem. You know, that kind of way? And I don't think that we're going to get away from it, unfortunately. I don't think our generation is any fucking different. I don't think Gen Z's generation is any fucking different either. I thought that for a while, but randomly spending more time than normal on TikTok and using a base algorithm, so you haven't liked anything, so everything comes in raw. Yeah, it's fucking poison. It's poison. Like, honestly, it is the depths of human fucking desperation, and it's centered around Gen Z, which I had massive fucking hopes for, and it just seems like they're no different to us or any of our generations that have gone before. We're just going to end up in the same sort of non-progressed state of fucking mediocrity. Well, there you go. There's some nice fucking positivity for you.
Well, no, I mean, it's inbuilt into, if you sort of look at anthropology, if you look at sort of our human evolution, we I think briefly touched on this in a previous podcast, of the idea that the teenagers rebel because way back when it was a way for the tribe to move forward. It was the courage of youth that drove them forward, whereas the elders wanted to stay put. They were more conservative, whereas the youth wanted to go and explore and find new lands and find new things. Yeah. And it's that yin yang, that fighting, that to and fro, the balance of society. And I think that but I think that it's innate to our beings, to humanity. And I think what it is as you get older, that drive to you then go too far, you'd spread yourself too thin. So you get to a certain point, you do your work in life, you know what I mean, as the worker ant, as it were. You do your bit, and then that nostalgia kicks in, that conservatism kicks in, and that going, I'm going to settle and things should calm down a bit. And we've done that, we've changed because they've seen the change from where they started to where they are. Then a lot of people get worried seeing the change going forward. So we need to figure out the mechanism to go, right, no, I've done my bit, my vote doesn't count anymore. I'm sick, I'm 70, I'm whatever.
Well, you know what I mean? But see, that's only applicable what we are in now. Whereas if us at 60 were to hold a mantle, and here's my mantle currently, that sounded like I just shat on Gen Z, right? It's more of a, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. I'm getting old now, right? And, but here's the thing. The disappointment comes from, do you know what? You can do more. Fucking crack the fuck on, lad.
Yeah.
Go on, keep going. Don't fucking stop.
Yeah, but more than ever, right? This is the greatest drug of our days.
Yeah.
This kills more people. This enslaves more. This perpetuates our paradigm, our cultural existence. It tells us what to think, what to eat, what is cool, what friends we should like and follow. What celebrities we should engage with, and all of this shit. It determines our newsfeed. That thing, right? This generation were born with it in their goddamn hand before they could ask questions, before they hit puberty and realize that life is about connection and others and experience. They're locked into this goddamn thing, and everything is boring and less colorful and less instantaneous. And so it's our generation and the generations above that have then enslaved our youth. They have sold our future so they can gain comfort today. So I don't blame Gen Z at all. I do. I am disappointed, but not in them, but out of the outcome of the situation, because they've been, like I said, they've been thrust into a position where everyone has gone, fix the shit. Here's every generational problem we've discovered for the past century. Go on then. You've got the internet, you've got money, you're going to go to Mars and shit. Figure it out. Come on. And then we're going, but they're fighting over genders and they're fighting over this and they're fighting over that and this. And it's like, that's them in progress doing the fucking work. They have to figure out the system, because for far too long and far too much of our cultural norms and our accepted societal things are done because it's tradition, and we've always done it that way. And so we've long since lost the reason why those things occur. It's just become that weaponization of tradition, as you say, of people that are standing fast in the tide, trying to cup the water back. Do you know what I mean? And all that's doing is it's holding back these pockets, and they become, like you say, toxic. The water stagnates. Nothing can live within it. But... And these people now have the resource to build dams. So more water than ever is diverted. So again, hence the reason I feel that they're more a victim than any generation, unfortunately, because of expectation.
I absolutely agree. And that was the point I was going to make. So, like, I should just, how do I say it? I should just sort of, no, because it's not a preface. It's not a preface because I've already fucking said it. So what's the opposite of preface? A suffix.
Suffix?
All right. I should have said was that Gen Z are actually being infiltrated massively so and exploited. No, that is the truth of it. I sent you on some of this. You should definitely read it. Is like we've spoken about it before, like the wellness and likes of yoga and stuff like that being completely infiltrated by the right wing, and then you can have this like completely balanced image of self, all completely kitted out in fucking gear and whatnot, and then be 100% racist right at the end of your message and stuff like that. And what we're seeing is which is one of my biggest fears, is almost every avenue that's associated with, say, progressive left. I don't like left and right. Basically, being sound as fuck. Being sound to the planet, being sound to people. Having empathy for, people that are homeless, say for instance, or basically that's what I'm trying to get at. Every part of this is being infiltrated by the right wing. So much so that what they do is they have a top end or surface level progressive left stance. Say, environmentalism. Yeah, I'm gonna fucking fight the environment, and I'm gonna do all or fight for the environment and do all of this kind of stuff. Fight the environment. Well, in actual fact, what you find are political sort of tropes, I guess, or like anti-immigration, say for instance, that's the root of what is actually being put out into society. But at the top level, it's I'm fighting for the environment. Do you see what I'm saying? It's buried in the fucking root of it.
Yeah, so it's a co-opting of, and especially like
that's the word I was looking for.
An astroturfing of grassroots movements, progressive movements. And so you see it all the time with people infiltrating. I mean, All Lives Matter is a good way of looking at this. So that was a counter to Black Lives Matter, and they were trying to present it in a positive light of going, oh, well, no, but everybody matters. And it was this, it's a dog whistle. It's a giant dog whistle for racism. And you see it was quite a lot of policies, as you say. So you end up with like the Conservatives now looking at progressive drug policies, for example, that are not going to help the end consumer and not going to better society, but are going to make them a fuck ton of money through creating entheogenic private clinics to be able to sell MDMA and ketamine therapy, LSD therapy, DMT therapy, while still criminalizing all the dirty hippies who do it in nature and all of a sudden then get this, hey, we should just like live in the woods and like, you know, use our own water. But that's the extremity of it. But most people that have entheogenic experiences become more connected and concerned with environmental issues. That's just a fucking given. You know, people that eat magic mushrooms suddenly want to go, we should protect this shit. You see how magic this is? That beautiful ball of light in the sky that gives birth to all of this every day. You know, the dirt that provides us food, the air that gives our look. You suddenly, it's there. It's everything beyond the fancy shit, the garbs we dress ourselves in, and the fancy technology we have to distract ourselves, and the concrete cages we live in. You suddenly feel human and fucking alive. They can't have you doing that in a field or at a festival or at a fucking free party with hundreds of other people listening to music and being co-mixing with fucking dozens of different cultures and races and ethnicities and people. They need you to do that in a private clinic where they can control that outcome. And you have that very specific revelation that helps you deal with your PTSD or your anxiety and depression just enough that you can become a functional member of a capitalist society.
Right,
so you'll become a...
you're dependent on
exactly.
on us.
That's the whole way all of this is. That's what any of it is. What did they say? No man will ever give you an education to overthrow him. And that's where we're at. We are being taught and misled and manipulated at every fucking turn. Everything is workshopped. Everything is polished. So that exactly that, it goes through this churn of mainstream media and acceptability. So get the darkies out, get the foreigners out, suddenly becomes take back power. Suddenly becomes, you know, oh, it's for the fisheries. Oh, it's for independence and blue passports.
It's not suddenly. This is happening now.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying is that mechanism. Yeah. So they just feed in their ideology of their hatred, and they're like, oh, homelessness or drug addiction. So now, and what's happening? They churn this through, and all of a sudden it's, well, we're going to now create more anti-cannabis propaganda, while several members of our sitting government are making millions off the back of legal cannabis, medical cannabis. I'm air quoting for people that can't see that. It's a fucking farce. It's a fucking joke. They are co-opting all of this shit from under us. They have removed everything. For the past century, they have been at war with the commons. They have taken the land from us. They have taken our right to move. They have taken our right to travel. They have taken our right to free existence. They have taken our right to expression. They have taken our right to explore our consciousness, to converge together, to build our own communities and to live in our own ways.
So now can they take the right and put it in the fucking bin? That'd be great. That's the right you can take and put it in the fucking bin.
Well, the thing, it's unfortunately the left and right isn't quite what it is anymore.
No,
it's the left doesn't fit in it. As we've spoken of before, the left and right are part of the neoliberalistic capitalist spectrum. That's their politics. That's the democracy we're allowed to operate in. So if you go, oh yeah, I should be able to live off the land or whatever else, that's on left wing. That's not neoliberalistic. If you go, I don't want to engage in this shit and have to buy a new iPhone every other fucking year, and I don't want flashy cars and clothes and whatever excessive consumerism, you just want to eat, live, raise a family and have nice experiences, you know, read and educate yourself and utilize the internet or whatever else, but in a responsible way. That doesn't fit on that fucking spectrum. So this is why the vast majority of people do not vote, because they're disenfranchised and not represented by this dwindling, dying, draconian, archaic ideology. It's not representative of us. Look at the House of fucking Lords. Look at the House of fucking Commons. Look at this system they have built. The pomposity, the pageantry. It's off-putting to everybody. Any common man looks at this and goes, fuck me running, Jesus Christ. The reason people like Boris and that get ahead with their buffoonery and their appearance of not being able to do anything is exactly because of that. They go, one of them's fallible. Look, he's human. I've got something in common with him. You know, I bet he pisses. He has a shit in the morning. Look at him. Do you know what I mean? Whereas the rest of them just constantly in this, and it's just fucking, you can't see beyond it. So then the reason people like Trump and Nigel Farage get ahead somewhere is because they talk to the common man. Again, I'm air quoting there for listeners. They suddenly are speaking to their ideology, and often it isn't their ideology. They're just speaking something they've heard down the pub rather than on fucking BBC News. And I think that's the difference. Yeah. Politics has to be representative of our cultures and our communities, and it's fucking not.
Did you know that? Do you know this Cameo thing that's going around?
The app.
Yeah,
where celebrities and shit.
Celebrities, yeah. So Nigel Farage is on that. Should we do a whip round and fucking get him to come on? 50 quid. I'm actually serious. I'm actually deadly serious. Let's do a whip round, right? All of our listeners throwing a quid each, or I'll try and $5 or whatever. And we get him on. Fuck it. Why not? All right, I tell you what. This will be a nice little way to end this.
Incredibly controversial. Fuck it. You know, I always say we need to be courting more controversial guests.
Unfortunately, I do think it is pre-recorded. Otherwise,
we could get him assist. We get him to give us a fucking shout out. No, do you know what I want to hear Nigel Farage say? Brexit was a mistake. How much will it cost us to get him to say Brexit was a mistake?
50 fucking quid, because I'd say he's just
laughing all the way to the bank. That shows how fucking immorally bankrupt the man is.
Well, this is just, I think you could pay him to say anything, to be quite honest about it. Genuinely, I could say, we offered him 100 quid to say Jeremy Corbyn was right. I guarantee he'd take it. He'd snap the fucking hand off you.
We need to figure out if there's direct communication via the Cameo website. If so, we'll reach out and start a conversation.
You see, here's the thing. It's definitely pre-recorded, because we can't be the first person to have this idea, making a mockery out of Mr. Nigel, our good friend Nigel.
He does more than enough to make a mockery
out of himself. Yeah. But fucking hell, I don't know.
No, but it opens an interesting thought though that we have been saying that we want. I want naysayers. I want controversial guests. I want people that I've got to really debate with and really use.
Here's the thing though. They have nothing to say. And this is the problem. So they'll just go, "Oh no, I'm not coming on that." Honestly, if you're a prohibitionist, if you got something to say, come talk to us. Come fucking talk to us. Lay the fucking ground down right now. I want to hear it. I want to fucking hear it. Even if you school me and put me in my place, which you fucking won't. But anyway.
Yeah, no, exactly that. And that is a perfect way to end this podcast. Right. Folks, I hope you've enjoyed our little wind down chat at the end of this. Again, George Charlton, fucking bravo to the man, honestly. Got a lot of love for George and what he's doing. He barely touched on a couple of the projects he's involved with. His work is extensive and he is tireless. So please do check out georgecharlton.com. You can check out his counselor services on Facebook as well.
Yeah, I showed the 2 pages earlier, so just rewind the video.
For our audio listeners, they will be in the links available below. Thank you very much for joining us as always. Please do check out the Patreon at patreon.com/Simpa Life and help us keep the lights on and keep the show going for the next weeks, months, years, decades to come. Hopefully, one of these days we'll get our big break, and we're quite happy to slog on from now until then. So in the meantime, please do check us out on social media. Give us a like, a follow, and a share. And yeah, it's been a pleasure as always, Maka. We'll see you next week, brother.
Love you loads.
Peace, guys.